In the early morning of Xuanling, there was always a cold smoke. Lin Ruochen stood on a small earth slope outside the mountain village, carrying a broken iron sword on his back, and his eyes widened at the red clouds in the sky. His face was beautiful, with a calmness that was inconsistent with his age, and his eyes were as sharp as cold stars, as if they could pierce this vast world. At the age of 15, he is leaving this small place where he gave birth to him and raised him today, and going to a place called Yunxiao Sect, and starting a completely unfamiliar life. Ruochi, don't be stunned. The old man is coming soon. An old man's voice came from behind. It was Li Bo, the old man in the village. He was hunched with his back, and he was leaning on a dry wooden stick in his hand, and there was a piece of silk hidden in the folds of his face. Lin Ruochen turned over and lightly pointed his head, without saying much. He is not a person who loves to speak, and he has been like this since childhood. People in the village always say that he is born with a lonely and arrogant atrocity, unlike other children who love each other. But only he himself knows how much stuff is hidden in this silence. The drama in the demon village is still engraved in his brain like a knife, bloody sky, the screams of his parents, and the hopelessness of his own slap. He held the iron blade on his back tightly, his fingers turning a little white. This sword was the only thing left by the father. Although it was broken and there was no such thing as a sword, it was more important than life to him. On the mountain road far away, the sound of horse hooves and the sound of carriages crushing stones are reported. Uncle Li narrowed his eyes and looked at it, saying, "Come on, child, remember, when you arrive in the aristocratic gate, don't be too stubborn, you will be low-headed in your studies, so that your life will be better." Lin Ruochen nodded, his eyes not moving. He knew that Li Bo was doing his own good, but he knew in his heart that he might not be able to change his temperament. Low-head? In his dictionary, this word has never existed. A moment later, a team of people appeared in the field. The leader is a tall old man with white hair and a long blue-gray robe. His aura is so powerful that people dare not look directly at it. There were several young men following him, an arrogant look, wearing a uniform green long shirt and a long sword around his waist. He was obviously a disciple of Yunxiao Sect. The old man was riding immediately, his eyes swept over Lin Ruochen on the soil slope, and narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he had seen something interesting. "Lin Ruochen?" The old man's voice was low and powerful, with an unquestionable sense of pressure. "It's me." Lin Ruochen met his gaze, his words calm and without any timidity. The old man clicked a little, turned over and walked up and down, and looked up and down. "My name is Yandianzu, the third elder of Yunxiao Sect. I heard that you were born with a clear mind and a new mind. I saw it today and it was really interesting. From now on, you will be the outer disciple of my Yunxiao Sect. Go back with me." Yuntian biography's words are simple and short, with an undeniable meaning. Lin Ruochen didn't say much, but just bowed to Boli to say goodbye, and then followed Yuntian to the horse. The team was in a hurry, and the figure of the village became blurred behind him until it disappeared into the mountain road at all. In the car, Lin Ruochen leaned against the car wall, closed his eyes and kept holding the broken iron in his hand. Yun Tianzhang sat opposite him, glanced at him from time to time, and had some exploration in his eyes. Several young disciples next to him talked about private words, and their language was full of disdain. "Just this country boy. He looks thin and weak. What can he have? The elders are really good at it. He is so special to come and pick up people. I heard that he had never even cultivated his spirits. He made some famous with a broken sword. Hey, it was such a joke. When he arrived at the sect, he had no spirits. No matter how good the sword was, it was a waste." Lin Ruochen heard it clearly, but he didn't say anything, but his eyelids moved slightly. He knew it was normal for these people to look down on him. After all, he was a slutty boy from a small mountain village. He didn't even have any clothes on his body, and he didn't look like a material that could practice. But he doesn't care. How do others see him? What's the relationship with him? He came to Yunxiao Sect just to become stronger, just to one day he could kill the demons that destroyed his village. A few days later, the team finally arrived at Qingyun Mountain where the Yunxiao Sect was located. Looking far away, the mountains are surrounded by mountains and clouds, and several towering peaks are penetrated directly into the sky. At the top of the peak, you can see the palace with flying eaves and horns, which exudes a fairy atmosphere. Lin Ruochen couldn't help but feel a little shocked when he saw this scene for the first time. Although he didn't say it, he was still full of curiosity about the world of cultivation. "Get off!" Yun Tianfeng's voice interrupted his thoughts. Lin Ruochen followed him off the car and looked up. In front of him was a huge stone door with 3 big words Yunxiao Sect engraved on it. The characters were so powerful that they felt inexplicable. Behind the stone gate is a long bluestone staircase that leads directly to the top of the mountain. There are many disciples wearing blue shirts standing on both sides, looking at the new Lin Ruochen curiously. "From today, you are a disciple from the outside and live in Qingsongyuan on the mountain foot. There is a monthly lecture that you must remember. In addition, 3 days, a new disciple will try out the show. If you have good performances, you can enter the inner door in advance." After Yun Tian finished speaking, he turned his head and added, "I have high hopes for you, don't let me down." Lin Ruochen clicked the head and didn't say much. He knew that this trial was an opportunity for him. He must catch it, otherwise, in this Yunxiao sect, he would be difficult to stand firm and rest in a stable and resourceful way. In the next few days, Lin Ruochen came down in Qingsongyuan. Although this place is simple, at least it has a foot drop. Every day, he not only meditated to understand the meaning of the drama, but also practiced the drama in the yard with the broken iron drama. His swords have no fancy moves, they are all explored by themselves, simple and direct, but each sword has a sense of killing. When other outside disciples in the yard saw this, they couldn't help but talk about his strange way of cultivating. This kid practices like he is desperate, and he doesn't need to be energetic. He relies so much on energy that he has already been practicing himself. "Hey, I heard that he was brought back by the old man. Maybe he is really capable. When I try to take a look, I guess I will be exposed." Lin Ruochen was silent on these arguments. He knew that although his art was somewhat fundamental, his spiritual cultivation was almost zero, which was his biggest weakness. Yun Tianzi gave him a basic breathing door, but after trying it several times, he always felt that something was blocking in his heart, and he could not gather his spirit in his body. He felt that this had something to do with the shadow in his heart, but he couldn't say what it was. The day of trial is coming soon. The location of this trial was in a dense forest deep in Qingyun Mountain. It was said that there were many low-level monsters in it, which were specially used to train the fighting abilities of new disciples. The rules for the trial are very simple. Each person will issue a jade token and go into the forest to kill the demon beasts. According to the level and quantity of the demon beasts, the top 10 with the highest scores can be directly promoted to the inner door. Lin Ruochen stood at the entrance of the dense forest, holding the iron sword in his hand, and glanced over his companions around him. Most people are tight and excited on their faces, and only a few look on their faces, which obviously have some confidence. One of the tall young men looked particularly eye-catching. He was wearing a long blue shirt, a long sword with a lightning-hiding sword hanging around his waist, his eyes were cold, and an arrogant smile was hanging on the corner of his mouth. His name is Zhang Haoren, and he is the best among these new disciples. He has practiced thunder-type martial arts before entering the door, and his strength is far superior to those of his kind. Lin Ruochen, right? Zhang Haoren walked over and looked at him up and down, with a few picks in his temperament. "Did you hear that you were brought back by the elders and you are so good at the art of the elders? I hope you don't disappoint people, don't even cut even the demons and wipe out the elders' faces." Lin Ruochen glanced at him without saying a word, but just turned over silently and continued to look in the direction of the dense forest. Zhang Haoren's face darkened, and he didn't expect to be ignored. He snorted coldly, "It's great. I hope you can end up being beaten to the end, and don't be beaten with a jade token on the first day and put out a try." After saying that, he turned away with several followers, leaving behind a string of harsh laughter. Lin Ruochen still did not react, but just held the sword's hand tightly. He knew that this test was not only as simple as killing monsters, but these battles between the same door were probably the real test. After the trial officially began, Lin Ruochen led a man into the dense forest. He didn't team up with anyone, nor did he want to get involved with anyone. His goal is very simple, killing as many monsters as possible and getting high points. As for how others see him and how to calculate him, he is very reasonable. The air in the jungle is damp and hot, the trees are tall and dense, and the sunlight is almost invisible. Lin Ruochen carefully shuttled through the forest, and the iron sword in his hand always maintained a posture that could be unsheathed at any time. Before he could walk, he heard a low growl. Looking around, he saw a gray wolf with sharp teeth squatting under a big tree, with the red eyes staring at him. Low-level demon beast, iron-toothed wolf. Lin Ruochen recited silently in his heart, remembering that the old man mentioned that although this kind of demon beast is not strong, it is extremely fast and likes to live in groups. It is good to meet them alone. Once they are in groups, all the disciples in the door will have a headache. Without much hesitation, he stepped on his feet and rushed over like an arrow. The iron-teeth wolf roared, rushed up, and pointed his throat directly. Lin Ruochen's eyes turned cold, and his body slightly turned to the side. The iron sword in his hand suddenly burst out. The sword light flashed, and the wolf's head fell to the ground, blood poured all over the ground. "One head, 10. He said in a low voice, lifted a small demon core from next to the wolf corpse and stuffed it into it. This demon core is a certificate of points, and you must submit it to the statistics after the trial is completed. In the next few moments, Lin Ruochen connected the bullets in the dense forest to kill 7 or 8 low-level monsters, and his scores rose smoothly. His scheming is clean and neat, and every hit is directly at the key point, and he does not waste any energy. But he also found that his physical strength was gradually decreasing. After all, he had not cultivated his spirit and relied on his physical strength to support him. It was still a bit difficult to fight for a long time. Just as he was about to find a place to rest, a scream suddenly came from a distance, followed by a few roars of monsters. Lin Ruo's eyebrows sniffed, hesitated for a moment, and then turned toward the sound. Although he doesn't like to care about things, in this trial, it may be possible to save people and save them. When he arrived, he saw only a girl in a light blue dress trapped in the middle by a 3-headed iron-toothed wolf. She was holding a jade pendant full of runes in her hand, her face was pale, and she was obviously feeling a little weak. There were several burnt talismans scattered around her body, and there were 2 demon beasts lying on the ground. It seemed that they were killed with talismans. "Hey, are you okay?" Lin Ruochen shouted, and at the same time rushed over. The iron sword snatched it and directly killed the iron-toothed wolf. The girl raised her head and looked at him with a shock, but she quickly clicked, "I'm fine, thank you, be careful." Before the words finished, the other iron-toothed wolf suddenly rushed towards Lin Ruochen. He reacted very quickly, and the tip of his body pierced the wolf's belly, and blood spurted out. The last wolf saw that the victory was not good, so he turned around and ran away, but Lin Ruochen couldn't let it escape. He suddenly exerted force under his feet, and caught up with him in a few steps, resulting in its life. "Who?" He stood up and turned to look at the girl. "Are you a disciple of the inner door?" The girl clicked her head and said lightly, "I am Su Wan'er, the inner door talisman master. I just came to help the new disciples to clear the danger. I didn't expect that I would be trapped. Thank you for helping me." Lin Ruochen grabbed the hand and said nothing, but just silently lifted the demon core on the ground. Su Wan'er looked at his back, and a complex look flashed in her eyes, as if she wanted to say something, but she still didn't open her mouth in the end. At this moment, a rapid sound of footsteps suddenly came from the forest of trees far away, and then several figures walked out. The leader was Shan Haoran. He looked at Lin Ruochen and Su Wan'er, and a meaningful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Yi, isn't this Lin Ruochen? Why are you mixed up with the sister in the inner door? It seems that you, like a kid, are you looking for a backer?" Lin Ruo's eyebrows snaked, his hand holding the sword was slightly pressed, and his eyes swept coldly. He knew that this guy was not good, so he would be in trouble next. Lin Ruochen stood beside Su Wan'er. The broken iron blade in his hand was dripping with the iron-toothed wolf's blood, staring at Zhang Haoren coldly. He didn't say anything, but the chill that came from his bones made the air around him seem to have solidified a little. The wind in the jungle was blown lightly and the leaves were rustling, but it was not able to relieve the intense atmosphere that was about to come. Zhang Haoren walked slowly with several followers, and the smile on his face became more and more intense. The lightning snail on his waist secretly emitted low birds, as if they were ready to be unsheathed at any time. His eyes first swept Lin Ruochen, then fell on Su Wan'er, and he talked with a few points in his language. "Sister Su, why are you mingling with this kid in the country? This test is the exam for a new disciple. If you come here as an inner door talisman, wouldn't it be a special way to protect him, right?" Su Wan's face changed slightly, and her hand holding the jade pendant tightened, but soon became calm and replied indifferently, "Sister Zhang, I'm just passing by and happened to be attacked by the demon gang. Mr. Lin helped me. If you have anything to do, just say it straight, don't bend it." Zhang Haoren smiled and sang his shoulders, and his eyes never left Lin Ruochen. "It's nothing, I just heard that this Lin brother is very good at sarcasm. I came to take a look and then, to teach." When he said the two words teaching, his language became more prominent, and there was a flash of slim light in his eyes. Lin Ruochen finally opened his mouth. His voice was low and calm. "The rules for trying to kill monsters, and the ranking of points is not for you to come and find fault. I am not interested in playing with you, so I will open it." As soon as this came out, several followers behind Zhang Haoren exploded and shouted, "Boy, what are you talking about? Are you looking for death if you dare to talk to Brother Haoren like this? A stingy boy from the outside can dare to be so crazy. Believe it or not, we will now knock your jade token and let you roll out the fun." Zhang Haoren raised his hand to stop their screams, and the smile on the corner of his mouth became colder. "Don't worry, the trial is getting longer. Since Master Lin is so proud, let's see how long you can hold. My points are now ranked first, and I heard that you have also won a lot of monsters. Why don't we compare, who can laugh to the end?" Lin Ruochen ignored him, but just glanced coldly and turned around and prepared to leave. He knew that Zhang Haoren was just trying to make trouble on purpose, and now he would only waste time and energy when he was having sex with him. The trial just started, and there was still an opportunity later, so there was no need to rush for a while. But he took a step and a tall and thin man suddenly came out behind Zhang Haoren. The long sword in his hand pointed directly at Lin Ruochen's back, and shouted in his mouth, "Want to leave? It's not that easy, leave the jade plaque and say it." This drama came very quickly, carrying a wave of spirit, which obviously moved the truth. Lin Ruo's eyebrows snaked, and his body suddenly turned to the side. The iron sword shook his backhand, and the sword light was like a rainbow, directly knocking the opponent's long sword, making a crisp sound of golden iron squirting. The tall and thin man didn't expect Lin Ruochen to react so quickly. He was stunned for a moment, and was immediately forced to take a few steps back by the swordsmanship, and his face became red. "It's over!" Su Wan'er suddenly made a sound, and the jade pendant in his hand sniffed lightly, and a talisman curl appeared in vain, turning into a light curtain between Lin Ruochen and Zhang Haoren. Her face was a little white, but her verbal spirit was unquestionable. Trying to make a decision does not allow politeness. "If you continue to fight, I can only report on the old age. Who will not think about it at that time?" Zhang Haoren narrowed his eyes, stared at Su Wan'er for a moment, and finally put away the ugly appearance, and said with his shoulders, "Okay, I still have to give you the face of Sister Su. Lin Ruochen, you are very happy today, let's take a look." After saying that, he snatched his hand, turned away with a few followers, and disappeared deep in the dense forest. Only then did Su Wan'er relax her voice. She turned to Lin Ruochen, and said in a low voice, "You are fine, right? Zhang Haoren will report it. Be careful in the future, he will not let you go easily." Lin Ruochen clicked his head a little, but didn't say much, but just silently put away the iron blade and looked at the dense forest far away. He knew that Su Wan'er said it was right. People like Zhang Haoren were narrow-minded and had some strength, which was definitely a nuisance. But he was not afraid. Before coming to Yunxiao Sect, he had prepared his mentality. There would be no peaceful place here. If you want to stand firm, you will rely on not only talent, but also boxing. Thank you, he said in a low voice, then turned around and walked in the other direction, without looking at Su Wan'er anymore. Su Wan'er looked at his back, with a complicated look flashing in her eyes, and her lips moved, as if she wanted to say something, but she still didn't open her mouth in the end. She held the jade pendant in her hand tightly, sighed and turned away. In the next few days, Lin Ruochen continued to kill the demon beasts in the dense forest, and his division rose smoothly. His swords became more and more mature, and each sword was filled with a sensation of slaughter. There were almost no demon beasts that could use 3 moves under him. But he also discovered that his physical energy was getting bigger and bigger, and he didn't have the support of the spirit and fought purely on his body. After a long time, his hands holding the sword began to tremble a little. When night fell, he found a big tree, sat down on it, and closed his eyes to restore his spirit. The nights in the jungle are particularly quiet, with only the occasional sound of horns, making this darkness less deadly. He took out the demon core inside, and there were more than 20 of them in the number. According to the percentage, he should be able to rank in the top 10. But he knew in his heart that this was not enough. Zhang Haoren's guy probably had exceeded this number long ago. Just as he was thinking, a slight response suddenly came from afar. Lin Ruochen suddenly opened his eyes and pressed his hand on the iron. He held his breath and glanced towards the direction of the sound. He saw only a few black shadows moving rapidly between the trees, with extremely fast speeds and almost unable to see the shape clearly. It's not a demon. His heart sank, and he was puzzled with a bad premonition. The actions of the demons will not be so obscured. These black shadows are clearly human. Sure enough, after a moment, several figures walked out of the darkness, which were Zhang Haoren and his followers. They had sneering on their faces, and the weapons in their hands were scattering their spirits, which seemed to be ready. Lin Ruochen, you run quite fast. It's not easy to find you in the past few days. Zhang Haoren opened his mouth slowly, and the long lightning sword in his hand tapped his palm lightly, making a low buzzing sound. I said, the test is still long, and we have to calculate our account. Lin Ruochen stood up, held the iron sword tightly, his eyes as cold as ice. If you want to pick up the jade tablet, just say, what are you going to do? Zhang Haoren laughed and pointed, happy, I like your temperament. But, where's the only jade token? Today I have to let you know who is the boss in this Yunxiao Sect. After saying that, he slapped his hand and the following several followers immediately scattered, surrounding Lin Ruochen in the middle. Lin Ruochen glanced at the surroundings, and his lips sneered slightly, showing a sneer. He knew that this battle could not be avoided. Although there are many people on the other side, his sword is never afraid of challenges. Come on! He shouted softly, and his figure suddenly burst out. The iron sword carried a cold light and pointed directly at Zhang Haoren's face. Zhang Haoren snorted coldly, and the long sword of lightning was unsheathed in an instant. The sword's body was lying on it, colliding with the iron sword, making a harsh sound of thunder. The two of them took a few steps back at the same time. Lin Ruochen's arms were slightly numb, and he was secretly surprised. The spirit cultivation of this guy was indeed not weak, and his single power had already compressed him. That's all? Zhang Haoren sneered, and a long sword in his hand swept out, and several thunder lightning burst out like a snake, snatching Lin Ruochen away. Lin Ruochen did not dare to take it head-on, and he avoided his body and looked for opportunities to fight back. Although his sword technique was so powerful, it was still a bit difficult to face the attack supported by the spirit. The following were not idle either. They joined the battle, and the sword light and shadows formed a group, forcing Lin Ruochen to retreat. Bang! With a heavy blow, Lin Ruochen was knocked by a ball and hit the big tree behind him, and a silk of blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. He clenched his teeth and stood up with a strong grip, his eyes becoming more and more stable. He knew that he could not fall down. Once he fell down, not only would the jade token be saved, but his life might be lost here. It's quite good to hold back. Zhang Haoren licked his lips, and a flash of excitement flashed in his eyes, but the game ends here. As he spoke, he raised his long sword, and the lightning was thunderous, and prepared for Lin Ruochen to give him a last blow. At this moment, a green light suddenly shot from the side, turning into a huge talisman net, covering Zhang Haoren and his followers. The lightning was forced to be suppressed by the talisman, making a sizzling sound. Zhang Haoren's face changed and he suddenly turned around. Only Su Wan's eyes were seen walking out of the forest of trees, and the jade pendant in his hand was still emitting a faint light. Su Wan'er, what do you mean? Zhang Haoren asked, gritted his teeth. Obviously he didn't expect her to appear suddenly. Su Wan ignored him, just walked to Lin Ruochen, helped him, and asked in a low voice, "Are you okay?" Lin Ruochen pointed a little, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and stood up straight. "It's okay." Then Su Wan turned around and looked at Zhang Haoren, and his words were cold. Trying to make a decision does not allow politeness. "I will say again, if you don't leave, I will immediately report on the old age and the consequences will be borne by yourself." Zhang Haoren's face was sunny and stared at Su Wan for a moment, then finally snorted coldly, "Okay, you are in good health. Lin Ruochen, I have recorded this account, we will have a date in the future." After saying that, he waved his hand and left with the person in disappointment. Su Wan relaxed her voice and turned to Lin Ruochen, with a piece of responsibility in her eyes. "Why are you running so deep alone? If I hadn't arrived just now, what would you do?" Lin Ruochen didn't say anything, but just silently put away the iron sword and looked down at the blood on the ground. He knew that Su Wan had saved him, but the feeling of being helped made him feel a little uncomfortable. From small to adulthood, he was engaging in relying on himself. This kind of relying on others was too strange to him. "Thank you," he said in a low voice, turning around and walking towards the deep forest, without saying anything more. Su Wan looked at his back, bit her lip lightly, and finally followed. "Wait, I will go with you, the trial is not over yet, Zhang Haoren will not be able to stop." Lin Ruochen stopped walking, turned to look at her, and his eyebrows were slightly awkward. "I am a person and I don't need anyone to accompany you." Su Wan was stunned for a moment, then said in a low voice, "I know you don't like to bother others, but there are too many dangers in this jungle. There are many people around Zhang Haoren, and it is difficult for you to deal with it alone. I won't drag you down, the talisman can at least help you." Lin Ruochen was silent for a moment, and finally stopped talking, and no longer refused. He knew that Su Wan's words made sense. Although he didn't like teaming, the current situation really needed a helper. In the next few days, the two of them walked together and continued to kill the demons in the dense forest. Su Wan's talisman was a big deal. Her healing talisman could quickly recover Lin Ruochen's injuries, and attacking the talisman could seal the demon's zombies' action, allowing Lin Ruochen's slaying technique to produce greater power. The cooperation between the two became more and more tacit, and their points increased rapidly, and they soon entered the top 5. But Lin Ruochen suddenly felt uneasy in his heart. He felt that behind this test, there seemed to be something wrong. The number of demons deep in the dense forest is far more than what the elders described, and the power of some demons has exceeded the scope that the new disciples can handle. After several fights, he even felt a familiar atmosphere that was the demonic atmosphere he felt when the Muresu was destroyed in his childhood. "What's wrong?" Su Wan'er noticed his strangeness and asked in a low voice. Lin Ruochen shook his head and said nothing, but just held the iron sword tighter and looked deeper into the dense forest. "It's okay, let's go." The two continued to move forward, but they didn't notice that in the forest far away, a pair of red eyes were staring at them, emitting cold light that was scattering. Lin Ruochen and Su Wan'er walked shoulder to shoulder in the deep forest. The dead branches under their feet were trampled and slight fishy atmosphere filled the air. The night became increasingly dense, and the moonlight shone through the spots of light and shadow under the dense tree crown, making this forest look even more strange. Lin Ruochen held the broken iron, his eyebrows were tightly locked, and the feeling of anxiety became stronger. as if there were two invisible eyes watching them in the dark. "Be careful, this place is not in opposition," he reminded in a low voice. His eyes swept over the surrounding trees, and every shadow made his heartstrings tight. Su Wan'er clicked a little, and the jade pendant in her hand was slightly slight, as if she felt something. She said lightly, "I just tried to use the Spirit Explorer to check it out. There was a strong demon in front of me. It shouldn't be an ordinary low-level demon. Do we want to go around?" Lin Ruochen stopped and was silent for a moment. His straightforwardness told him that the evil spirit in front might be the thread he had been looking for, the plot that destroyed his village, and it still looks like a thorn in his heart. If he retreats now, he may never find the answer. "No," he finally opened his mouth, his voice low and calm, "no matter what it is, I have to go and see it. If you are afraid, just wait here." Su Wan'er bit her lip, and a trace of her eyes flashed, but she quickly slammed her head. "I'll be with you. The talisman can at least help you, don't refuse." Lin Ruochen glanced at her and said nothing, but just silently pointed and continued to walk forward. The two of them carefully passed through a bush, and the fishy air in the air became heavier and heavier, and they could even hear the growls coming from afar, like some giant beast breathing. Lin Ruochen's heartbeat couldn't help but speed up, and the iron blade in his hand was tighter, and his fingers were a little white. Finally, they arrived at a clearing. In the middle of the open space, an ancient tree in the sky stood, and the trees were so thick that several people couldn't even hug them. The trees were intertwined, like monsters with their claws. Under the tree, a huge monster was lying on its back, 3 feet long, covered with black armor, and the red eyes half clear, emitting cold light that was scattered. Around it, there are several elixir bones with monsters, which are obviously its treasures. Black Demon Dragon. Su Wan'er was shocked, and her face turned pale in an instant. "This is a middle-level demon beast, and its strength is comparable to that of the late stage of the Gigi period. We are not a match at all." Lin Ruochen didn't say anything, but just stared at the demon dragon. Its breath was exactly the same as the demonic he felt when Nakamura Kazamiya was destroyed. At that moment, the memory of Wuxian's years of memories surged into his heart like a tide, the screams of his parents, the wailings of the villagers, and the hopelessness of his own. He bit his teeth tightly, and a trace of agarwood flashed in his eyes, and his hands holding the sword were shaking slightly. It's it," he murmured softly, with deep hatred in his voice. Su Wan'er heard his strangeness and hurriedly grabbed his arm. "Lin Ruochen, it's a bit cold. We can't beat it now, and fighting hard will only kill you. Go back first and find the elder to deal with it." But Lin Ruochen seemed to have not heard her, stared at the demon dragon with his eyes fixed on him, and walked forward slowly. There is only one thought in his brain: revenge. No matter what price he paid, he would make the beast's blood loose. "Lin Ruochen." Su Wan'er was anxious and suddenly slapped in front of him, with a trembling sound in her voice. "You hear me, if you don't rush to revenge, your life is more important than anything else. Let's go back first and follow the president's plan." Lin Ruochen finally stopped and looked at her loweredly. Su Wan'er's eyes were filled with gratitude, and even a little begging, which made his heart slightly shake. He was silent for a moment, and finally gave a long breath and pointed. "Okay, I'll hear you, go back first." The two were about to turn away, but at this moment, the black demon dragon suddenly opened its eyes, and the ape's red light stabbed at them like a sharp blade. It let out a low growl, and its body suddenly popped up, and its huge tail whipped like a whip, carrying a wild wind, directly smashing a big tree beside it. "Be careful." Lin Ruochen pushed Su Wan'er suddenly, and he flipped over and avoided this strike. The tail hit the ground, stirring up a dust of soil, and the open space became a mess in an instant. "I can't run away." Su Wan'er gritted her teeth and stood up. The jade pendant in her hand quickly moved. Several talisman papers appeared in vain, turning into a light curtain in front of the two people. "I will use the talisman to hold it up. You can find a chance to escape, don't worry about me. Close your mouth." Lin Ruochen whispered, his eyes as cold as ice. "I won't let you go, don't miss it, go together." Su Wan'er was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. and no longer responded. The two of them stood back to back, facing this huge object. Lin Ruochen's iron strip was emitting a cold light, while Su Wan'er's talisman spiraled in the air, emitting a faint light. The black demon dragon roared, and its huge body suddenly rushed in. In Zhang Kai's bloody mouth, a fishy breath came over his face. Lin Ruochen bit his teeth tightly, his body flashed, and the iron sword held a cold light and stabbed the demon dragon's eyes. But his sword was slapped hard by the demon dragon's claws, and the whole person was shot to fly several feet away, hitting a tree, and blood was overflowing from the corner of his mouth. Lin Ruochen! Su Wan'er shouted, and the jade pendant in her hand suddenly slapped, and a huge talisman net appeared, trapping the demon dragon temporarily. But her face turned paler, and it was obvious that this effort consumed a lot of her spirit and mind. Lin Ruochen stood up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his eyes becoming more and more stable. He knew that Su Wan'er would not last long, and if they did not fight back, they would both die here. He lowered his head and glanced at the broken iron sword in his hand. A silk light suddenly flashed through his brain, the killing sword obtained from ancient zodiacs, which had never been able to fully stimulate its power, now may be the only opportunity. He took out the sword from it, and the sword was filled with ancient patterns and a faint wave of spirit was scattered. He bit his fingertips and dripped a drop of blood on the sword, then closed his eyes, trying to establish a connection with the sword with his sword. At that moment, a chaotic picture suddenly appeared in his brain, like a memory fragment of an ancient cultivator, and countless cultivators poured into his mind like a tide. Buzz! The sword suddenly sounded a low voice, and a dazzling light burst out from the sword's body. Lin Ruochen suddenly opened his eyes, clamped the sword tightly, and felt an unprecedented force flowing in his body. His eyes were as sharp as cold stars, and his whole person's aura suddenly rose, as if he had become another person. "Beast, die!" He shouted softly, and his body rushed out like a ghost, carrying a dazzling sword light, piercing the throat of the black demon dragon. The demon dragon let out a roar and tried to plaster it with its claws, but the scattered light directly pierced its defense without judging its armor, and blood sprayed out like a spring. Su Wan'er's eyes were filled with shock when she looked at this scene. She didn't expect that Lin Ruochen could explode such a war. What secret is hidden in that sword? The demon dragon was in pain and pierced violently. Its huge tail swept over and swept Lin Ruochen again. This time, he fell harder, and flew out of the sword, and inserted it on the ground, and the sword light also dimmed. Lin Ruochen lay on the ground, his chest fluctuated violently, and the spirit in his body was almost exhausted, and he didn't even have the energy to move his fingers. Lin Ruochen! Su Wan'er rushed over, knelt beside him, and continued to draw a few healing talismans in her hand, trying to calm his injuries. But her face was as white as paper, and it seemed to have reached its limit. Although the black demon dragon was seriously injured, it still did not fall down. The red eyes stared at the two people and approached. Every step of it made the ground tremble slightly, as if the god of death was approaching. Lin Ruochen looked at the huge bloody mouth, and suddenly flashed his parents' faces in the sea of brain, and the tide of the village when the village was destroyed. He bit his teeth tightly and tried to get up, but his body didn't listen to the slogan. "I'm sorry, I'm still too weak," he murmured softly, his eyes filled with self-responsibility and reluctance. At this moment, a sudden burst of sound came from far away, and then a blue-gray figure sank like a meteor, sank in front of Lin Ruochen and Su Wan'er. The person coming was Yunxiao. He was full of white hair and was swaying. He held a handful of ancient long sword in his hand, and his atmosphere was as heavy as a mountain. "A villain, seeking death." Yunxiao shouted softly, and 100-foot sword swept out, directly splitting the black demon dragon into 2.5, with blood and internal organs all over the ground, smelling the smell of the nose. Lin Ruochen and Su Wan'er looked at this scene blankly, almost unable to believe their eyes. Yunxiao turned around, his eyes swept over the two people, and his eyebrows were tightly locked. "How did you two run here? The monsters here are not something you can handle." Su Wan'er lowered his head and said silently, while Lin Ruochen gritted his teeth and stood up, and said in a low voice, "Old, this demon dragon is the destruction of my village. I must kill it." Yunxiao heard it, his eyes changed slightly, he was silent for a moment, and finally he spoke, "Silly boy, revenge is not a bad thing, but you must do it within your ability. Your current strength will only kill you if you fight hard. Do you understand?" Lin Ruochen didn't say anything, just pointed his head silently. He knew that Yunxiao was right, but the hatred in his heart could not be suppressed no matter how hard it was. Yunxiao no longer said that he picked up the sword with his hand and sent it to Lin Ruochen. "This sword is not simple, it contains the will of ancient sword cultivation. You can stimulate its power and show that your sword has been initially achieved. But remember, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility, don't let it backfire you." Lin Ruochen picked up the sword and felt the heat left on the sword, and clicked a little. Yunxiao glanced at Su Wan'er again and his language became more and more peaceful. "You too, let's stop trying to get back with me. The sect competition is about to begin, and that is the real test." The two followed Yunxiao to leave the dense forest. When they returned to Yunxiao Sect, it was already bright. The results of the trial were announced soon, and Lin Ruochen was reluctant to enter the top 10 with his previous scores and was able to advance to the inner door. Su Wan'er, with the first place, became the focus of everyone's efforts. He stood in the crowd, his eyes swept far away over Lin Ruochen, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Obviously he had no intention of letting go of this grudge. In the following days, Lin Ruochen officially became an inner disciple and began to contact the higher sects and spiritual cultivation. His art became more and more progressive, but his spiritual cultivation was always stopped. Whenever he tried to break through, the inner demon would always be like a shadow, causing him torture in his childhood shadow. Yunxiao looked at it and didn't say much, but just letting him participate in the sect competition, which was a good opportunity to cultivate his mind. The sect gates arrived in time, and the martial arts performances of Yunxiao Sect were filled with noises. Disciples from various peaks gathered together, and the atmosphere was as hot as a boiling water. Lin Ruochen stood in the crowd, carrying a broken iron blade on his back, and his eyes swept coldly around. His goal is very simple: to defeat Su Wan'er and prove himself. After a round of competition, Lin Ruochen used Ling Yan's striking technique to follow the game and quickly entered the finals. And his opponent was Su Wan'er without any surprises. The two stood on the competition stage, their eyes intersecting, and sparks bursting in the air. "Lin Ruochen, I didn't expect you to really get to this point." Su Wan'er sneered, and the long thunder in his hand radiated a dazzling arc. "But today I will let you know what real power is." Lin Ruochen didn't say anything, but just pulled out the sword silently, and there was a hidden light flowing on the sword's body. He knew that this battle was not only about honor, but also an examination of himself. He must fight against Su Wan'er, and also fight against the shadow of his heart. At the moment of the competition, Su Wan'er took the lead, and the long sword of lightning led an arc and turned into a thunderous force and rushed towards Lin Ruochen. Lin Ruochen's figure flashed and the sword swung out. The sword light was like a rainbow, colliding with the lightning, making a deafening sound. The disciples in the audience were blinded by their eyes and were surprised by the intensity of the competition. "As the two of you come and I go, the moves are becoming more and more ruthless. Su Wan'er's thunder-type martial arts are amazing. Each blow is filled with the power of destruction." Lin Ruochen resisted the attack with pure madness and destruction. But as time goes by, his physical strength gradually faded, and the gap in spiritual cultivation has made him suffer in a long-lasting war. "That's all you can do? Still wanna fight me?" Su Wan'er sneered, and the long sword in his hand suddenly slapped, and a huge thunder rushed towards Lin Ruochen's chest. Lin Ruochen bit his teeth and tried to slim the frame, but the force of this blow exceeded his prediction. The sword was shocked and flew out. He was also hit by lightning and fell heavily on the stage, with blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. "Lin Ruochen!" Su Wan'er shouted in the audience, her eyes full of anxiety. She held the jade pendant tightly and wanted to rush up to help, but she could only watch her eyes silenced. Zhang Haoran approached quickly, looked at Lin Ruochen from a high place, and a proud smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Boy, this is your limit. Please tell me, don't humiliate yourself. Lin Ruochen lay on the ground, his chest undulating violently, and scenes suddenly flashed in the sea of brains, the plot of the village, the faces of his parents, and the points of his own fighting alone over the years. He gritted his teeth and his eyes gradually became calm. He can't redeem, not only for himself, but also for those who will never come back. It's not finished. He murmured softly, stood up suddenly, stretched out his hand to the sword without looking at the pain. Zhang Haoran's face changed, and he had a bad premonition. Can you still stand up? Seeking death. He swept his sword again, and the lightning covered the net like a net, but Lin Ruochen closed his eyes and memory fragments of ancient cultivators appeared in the sea of brains. His drama intention broke through a certain shackle at this moment, and his entire aura suddenly rose, as if it was integrated with the drama. Break! He suddenly slid his eyes, and a slap of the sword slammed, and an invisible sword exploded like a storm, directly tearing the lightning apart, and even shook Zhang Haoran back several steps. The disciples in the audience were stunned, and even Yun Tianfeng's eyes flashed with surprise. Zhang Haoran gritted his teeth and tried to reverse the picture, but Lin Ruochen didn't give him a chance. He slammed out like a ghost, and the sword pointed directly at his throat. The tip of the sword stopped less than an inch from Zhang Haoran's neck. The cold chill made him stiff and he dared not move. I'll tell you. Lin Ruochen said 2 words coldly, his eyes as sharp as a knife. Zhang Haoran's face was blue, his lips trembled for a moment, and finally said in a low voice, I recognize it. The audience burst into surprise. Who would have thought that Lin Ruochen could reverse the situation and defeat Zhang Haoran? Su Wan'er relaxed her voice, and a hint of relief flashed in her eyes, while Yun Tianfeng glanced slightly, and a rare smile appeared on her face. After the competition, Lin Ruochen became the champion of the sect competition, and his reputation instantly spread throughout the Yunxiao Sect. But he didn't feel satisfied because he knew that his path was still very long. The shadow of the inner demon still exists, and the bottle of spiritual cultivation has not been broken through. More importantly, the truth about the destruction of the village seems to be far more than just a black demon dragon. A few days later, Yunxiao Sect suddenly reported news that the external enemy forces took advantage of the sect competition to defend themselves and launched a sudden attack. The entire sect fell into chaos, and countless disciples were thrown into battle. Lin Ruochen stood on the mountain, looking far away at the war fire ignited in the sky, and holding the sword in his hand tightly. He knew that this crisis was far more serious than he thought. Lin Ruochen, are you ready? Su Wan'er walked to him, the jade pendant in her hand shone with a glimmer of light, and a sudden decision was taken on her face. He pointed his head a little and his eyes were fixed. Let's go, no matter what enemy it is, I will not retreat. The two stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the war fire from afar, and walked down the mountain slowly. Their figures were getting old under the sun, as if they were about to embark on an unknown journey. And the end of this battle, and the deeper truth, are waiting for them to uncover.